Right, that's what I've installed. Can everyone hear me without the microphone first off? Because it's okay. I'll try and use it as much as possible, but I'm going to need both hands at some point. So today's talk is Race to AR. The reason it is we're going to be streaming data out of a racing game, or simulator as I'm told to call it. And how Power BI can then visualise that both in augmented reality, but also how do we build an IoT solution that would be applicable for use in a live streaming dashboard rather than just connected to SQL Server, putting in some data and showing that, although that's great. It's not quite what augmented reality, in my opinion, is really, really designed for. So the VR part is just because it's fun and it's something novel. So a little bit about me before we get going. I'm a consultant at Altius, so I work with James and a few other people here tonight. And one of the cool things, again, I'm not going to pitch the company, but one of the cool things is that there's quite a lot of time given to us to kind of play and look at what capabilities Azure, Power BI has to offer and kind of play with it, which is quite good. That's my Twitter handle. I have about 30 followers because it's a new account. My old one was probably not work appropriate with the name. You can really dig around and find it if you want, but if everyone wants to follow me, there's a lot more content along stuff like this, some of the machine learning stuff that James mentioned that I'll be releasing shortly, robots driving around the table and telling you to rude words and stuff like that. So yeah, follow me there, and then my LinkedIn profile's there as well. So I think before we start, I'm going to make two main distinctions. Today I'll be talking a lot about VR, a lot about AR. Virtual reality is when the developer, whoever controls everything that you see. There's a blacked out screen in front of you, and I can control exactly what you see, your depth perception, all of that kind of stuff. A few of the big ones are Vive, Oculus, and PSVR. This is something that I can talk about for hours, as you can probably tell. It's kind of a bit of a hobby, but we'll leave it there for now. That's probably another talk about data analytics and how you can use VR to really kind of 3D augment the data that you're showing and tell a really interesting data story. But that's for another talk. And then, press the button. I'm trying to be fancy. Yeah. That's another talk for another time. Whereas augmented reality is applying data onto real-world objects that you can see in front of you. So that's, I think, quite an important context to have. A few of these ones, Microsoft HoloLens, which I think we started, it was a long weekend, and Google and Apple both now are starting to support a lot more AR capabilities. Google with the AR Core, which is kind of an open source Unity library that really allows you to quite quickly start spinning up some pretty cool stuff. So, why do we care about AR? Why is it interesting for analytics, and why is it interesting for data? Well, there's a lot of these Microsoft examples that you'll see here. Manufacture is one. You can change things about a product, you can change the colour, you can change what the wheel size was, look at how that affects your models, all of that kind of stuff, and you can view it in a way that really is tangible, rather than just kind of a 2D screen or, oh yeah, that's a nice colour. You can actually see the object in front of you changing. You also have manufacture, so you've got people on the shop floor, they need to tighten a bolt to a certain specification, they need to know what that is, they might not know it off the top of their head. Something like this can very quickly pop up contextual information in the place that it is, and very quickly they can have what they need rather than going away, checking my laptop, getting my tablet out, whatever the case is. We also have gaming, entertainment, and fun. This was a demo that Microsoft did for Pacific Rim, which was released a couple of years ago now, I think. And I'm pretty sure that was pretty much all it did, but it was a cool concept at the time. The collaboration is another one, especially as people start working remotely a lot more. Data is going to become harder and harder to kind of sit there, and you're not going to be sitting with your Excel spreadsheets breaking down and working out sums together. So having something that allows anyone to interact looking at the same thing is probably a really powerful tool for collaboration and decision making. And finally, the famous Microsoft video, which was kind of where I was trying to go with this demo, but No. It's all about the connected factory is the big thing that they're pushing at the moment, and how you can have a technician walk in, see exactly what the problem machine is, what the pressure is, look down, see where the problem is, and then as well, all of the collaboration that AR can benefit you with remoting to the expert that's in Germany and you're in wherever. So yeah, that's kind of, there's a lot that can be done for it and a lot that can be said for it, but I think it's still quite early in its adoption. You have the HoloLens, you look, that's all you do on the HoloLens, you don't look the most attractive while doing it, but it is a very good piece of tech. So augmented reality is a new way to view your data with a dimension that wasn't previously accessible, looking at data on the screen, wherever, your X and Y. So all you have, you can maybe put in a map, but it's still on a 2D screen, whereas if you can physically see the thing in front of you, you can very easily pick up patterns and stuff that the human brain intuits naturally, but may not be available, or may not be as obvious when you're looking at it on the screen. So what we're going to cover today, a lot is the answer. There's a lot of stuff that I'm going to quickly breeze past, some of the more complex stuff around the .NET applications that are running to get the data into Azure and stuff like that. If people want me to go into it, then come find me after and I can show you what it looks like. It's not the neatest code, and it will be available when I get around to tidying it up a little bit, but it will be available. So we're going to stream data from Project Cars to Azure. I'm going to talk Project Cars in a minute. We're going to deal with that data in Azure. What do we do? Getting that data accessible for Power BI so that we can consume it as a real-time dashboard. Getting the data ready for later analytics. So one of the things that you want when you're streaming a race is to be able to go back and look at what happened, apply machine learning models or whatever. Connecting to that streaming data set from the Power BI service, creating a streaming dashboard, and displaying the report with augmented reality against real-world objects. So not much. And then hopefully at the end, if all of my technology works, we'll have something that goes slightly further and is more of a genuine AR experience rather than the Power BI on the mobile phone, which is still cool. So, what is Project Cars? It's a racing simulator. It has VR support, so it's cool. And it can output a huge amount of data. So with the real world, you have physics as your engine. In a game, you have to compute everything. So we get tyre temperatures on 16 different points on every single tyre. We get stuff about the engine, how fast it's spinning, what the temperature is. So much data. Plus, then we also have the physics data, where the wheel is, what's coming up, what the position's going to be, how much force am I getting on my steering wheel. Like, so much stuff. So it's a really rich data set to be playing with. Easier to fit in the room than a normal car. I did ask Owen to provide me with a full-size F1 car, but apparently it was expensive, so what can you do? And the other thing is it has an API, so it outputs data over the network. So, who's played VR before? Have you played racing games before? You'll be alright. No? Anyone want to play VR, or shall I pick on someone? James, would you like to be my willing volunteer?
No. Don't wish you will.
Yeah, come on in, mate. So, hopefully nothing's gone to sleep and it's all still working. Yeah, exactly. It's all right. Can't do much damage. How do I do it, Owen?
Which one you're trying to get?
The not the that one. Hey, first hurdle is down. Cool. So, if you put the headset on for me, you guys are going to be able to see what Rishi sees. Can you see? Okay, so paddles are here. So this is your this is to go down a gear. This one's to go up a gear. Your accelerator, your foot's on it, and you turn your steering wheel to turn it like a normal car. Okay? Right, so we're going to leave Rishi skidding about, warming the tyres up, should I say. So, yeah, this is how the game looks. Rishi can obviously see stuff in 3D that we can't, so it's a slightly different experience for him, probably a little bit more, it's wobbling the table too much. So yeah, it's just a driving game. It's very similar to how you'd normally drive. Hopefully not for Rishi, yeah, and one of the big things is, at this point, the game engine's going on in the background. The game engine's going on in the background and is spitting out all of this data. So, now that you kind of get an idea, Rishi, I'm going to leave you in there for a minute, mate, but if you start feeling sick or anything, just take the headset off. Some people forget that you can do that. Cool. So, what we're going to do is create a Power BI streaming dashboard. That's our end goal that we're going to look at, and from there it's actually relatively easy with the Power BI app to get it into AR, but we'll touch more on that later. So, what are the technologies that we've used to do this? Got .NET frameworks, that's just C#. In our case, it's a console application running on my machine, and a few other stuff doing some stuff with Cosmos, but that's, again, a talk for another time. We've got Event Hubs, which is a messaging service in Azure, which is a way of processing millions of messages per second. Stream Analytics, which is a real-time, take that message and do something with it, that's all it is. Blob storage for persistent storage of data, and then Power BI is our visualization tool. We also have Unity, Oculus, Cosmos DB and Azure Functions, but that's kind of the back-end stuff, which again, happy to go through, but maybe not as part of the main talk. So, what does the solution look like? To get data into Power BI, it's actually relatively simple, especially for live streaming data. We have our game, or our data source. We have our console application, which just sends it to the Event Hub. Stream Analytics takes the data that's coming in, it reads the messages, fires it out to Blob, fires it out to Power BI, and then we have the Power BI app doing the heavy lifting on the HoloLens for us. So this is a very simple diagram, a very simple architecture. It does quite a lot. So, how do we get the data out of Project Cars? This bit I'll go quickly on. We output the data by UDP, which is basically sending network packets over the local area network, and then I have my console application is just listening in the background, going, give me all of this data, serializing it, putting it to JSON and firing it off. That's all we need to know for now. Data from A goes out, goes to B. Simple. So, what does that data look like? Well, go on, mate. Yeah? Not thrown up yet? That's what the data looks like. No, that's not. You can't see that. This is what the data looks like. So, I've built this sample dashboard. I won't go into how, because we'll touch on that later. But basically, we have tyre temperatures, we've got the time-based analytics, live streaming through. We've then got speed miles an hour, and as you can see, Rishi's now stopping, so it's all starting to drop off. And we quite quickly can get to something like this. This isn't much. The way that he's off again. The way that again, I'm pushing quite a lot of data, so Power BI on the Wi-Fi is having a little bit of a difficult time doing it. We're currently sending probably, I think we're sending about 2,000 messages every 10 seconds each. So it's quite a lot of data, which might be why the visual costs are slightly higher this month, I'm sorry. So we are basically aiming to get to this point, and from here, shoot into Power BI. So, I need to... So, Stream Analytics, I've mentioned it briefly. But Power BI actually accepts multiple types of streaming data. We have APIs, which can be any open API, and there's a really good one if you want to have a play about connecting live streams up, which is called dadjoke.com. You query it, it gives you back a dad joke. It's quite a nice one to practice with. We also have PubNub, which is a publish and subscription service for APIs. lots of data on there. It's a useful one to have as well in your back pocket. And then we have Azure Stream, also known as Stream Analytics. So Azure Stream, you can surface it through the portal, and it is a feature that still points you back to the Azure. It points you back to Azure rather than being able to do it in Power BI. However, for the last 3 years that I've been doing Power BI, it says that it's coming soon to be able to do it in the service. So we'll see. So it's a cloud-based streaming service. It is SQL, so it's a subset of T-SQL, something known as A-SQL. Imagine SQL, but even more limited. And also you can write custom C# if you need to do anything more. And can have an IoT to edge solution set up really in a matter of minutes. As you're going to see, we're writing very simple select star from statements, and it's picking up and doing a lot of the heavy lifting for us. So what does a stream analytics job look like? We have our inputs and our outputs, sources and sinks, whatever you want to call them. In our case, it's an event hub. This can be anything from SQL database to event queues, event triggers, whatever, and Azure functions as well. And our output, for us, we're going to have a Power BI streaming data set, which is just one of the native connectors, blob, which is just throw all my data into it, throw all of the JSON into a saved location, and then Cosmos DB, but I'll touch on that a little bit later when we talk about some more of the AR stuff. And then we define our query. You can do quite a lot here, a lot of windowing functions. You can, sorry, thank you, mate. You can do a lot of windowing functions, stuff like that. However, the more processing that you do, one, the higher the cost. Two, the more lag you introduce, because if there's more stuff that it needs to do, time-bound stuff, it will start to slow down. So in our case, we just care about what it looks like now. We don't care about any major time-bound stuff. We'll let Power BI do that. So just currently, it's a select star from. Select star from. It's as simple as that. The way that the syntax works for this stuff, select into a table from your input. So this is where I'm really testing my limits to see if this is going to work. That's right. Actually, yeah, probably did. Right. So, we are in our Azure. Oh, sorry, let me just change my display so I can actually see what I'm looking at. Cool. So, in the portal, we have an option to create a resource. For the sake of brevity, I've already created one to make things a little bit quicker. So in our resource groups, we should have a Pug user group here. So what we can see here is our job setup. We have inputs. So to add it, what we want to say is there's concept of reference data and streaming data. In Stream Analytics, you can do joins, but they're very basic. You don't want to be doing lots and lots of joins and building a full ETL script in a real-time streaming situation. That's probably going to cost a lot and will crash your Stream Analytics server instance quite a lot. So what we're going to do is add a stream input from an event hub, and we call it project cars to LEM 2. The event hub that I've created is this one. Again, if you want to see some automation scripts, that's included in the thing. And we say, okay, this is my event hub, this is where the messages are coming from. And it automatically picks up the name, the default name of the connection string, so everything's secure. It's referencing through me, and therefore it knows that I have access to the root shared key, so it will surface it up here. Our event serialization is JSON, but from there we can have JSON, Avro, CSV. You can kind of define whatever formats work for you, and this is a relatively new thing that you can define your own custom formats, which is quite useful. And yeah, use the so we save that, and that's our input added. Now let's add an output. So we have event hubs, SQL database, blob storage, table storage, service bus topic, Cube, Cosmos DB, Power BI, storage Gen 1, data lake storage Gen 1, and an Azure function. So there's a lot of things that you can do with this outside of just surfacing it in Power BI. You can put it to another event hub to then be picked up by a different application or whatever, and control everything through one managed pipeline rather than having multiple places. But we then have, so in our case, we're going to go to Power BI. This is going to ask us to authorize and two-factor authentication. Not actually both, let me know. Approve. So what that will then do is that will go away and find all of your workspaces. So I've created a Pug user group workspace in our Power BI tenant. All of this stuff has to be done live streaming dashboards. The way that I'm showing it, live streaming dashboards only work in the service at the moment. There's no way to recreate them. There has been a recent update for live streaming in premium in reports with automatic refresh of like 2 seconds or something. Anyway, again, let's talk for another time. Let's call this telemetry out. So this is the data coming out of the game. Space. The dataset name is going to be project cars, then, and table name. Just add something there because I've already created it as part of my demo. I forgot to delete it. And then the table name we can just call telemetry. Again, this is all configurable. Depends on what you're doing. It's just in this case we're looking at that. And I need to use a user token, so there's some security stuff around how Stream Analytics outputs to Power BI. It's only just started supporting managed identities rather than user tokens. So it used to be that you had, as a user, you had to have access, and if they removed your access, it broke the Power BI streaming and someone had to go in and reauthorize it. That's now fixed, about time. And then what we then do is we define our queries. So we can see here we've got ones that already exist to make my life easier, and we all know how to write a select star from statement. What Stream Analytics will also do in the background is it will go away and it will actually query that event hub. So if we look, that one. So here we can see it's gone away, looked at that event hub and gone, okay, so this is my last 1,000 messages. So it makes it quite easy for us both to view the raw data and the tabular data that it will be then passing out. So what I then say is, okay, I have my inputs and outputs. Let's go with telemetry out 2. So select into our input, which is project cars, to 2. Should be anyway. Yep. And then we're selecting from, nope, it's not. Project cars. So it's here, and then project telemetry out 2. So that is a script that will take the messages off the event hub and stream it in tabular format to Power BI. Simple as that. So you think, what, 5 minutes? And you've got a pipeline coming from A to B. If you've already got your data source, your integration team or whoever is dropping data in, you can quite quickly start looking at building these live streaming dashboards, and gone are the days of writing a custom API that's going to fire it off and do a lot of quite complex stuff to get something that's relatively simple in concept. So, oh god, it's working. What is a Power BI, a live streaming Power BI dashboard? Well, they're relatively simple charts. They're not the most, you don't have the ability to create custom visuals and have beautiful maps and all of this kind of stuff, because again, the more processing you add, the more lag you add, therefore more cost and all of the stuff that goes along with trying to do that. Now, this was a demo that was done by Microsoft, which takes data from a humidity sensor, temperature sensor, basically an environmental sensor, and streams it live out. It's quite a good one. I believe it was a recorded webinar. It's quite a good one to watch to kind of give the concepts of physical sensor IoT data rather than kind of a bit slightly more conceptual IoT data. There's 5 types of visuals that we can have. You get a gauge visual, you get a card, a line graph, clustered bar chart, and clustered column chart. It's relatively simplistic, but you can do a lot with that. So that whole dashboard is just created with only 3 of these 5 ones. So, how do we surface that data that we've just created? It's all well and good saying that select star from has worked, but how does that look? Well, in Power BI, what we can do is we can go, okay, so let's look at our workspace. And I'm not going to click start on the and wait for the job to provision, but that's exactly what sits in the one that's actually running at the moment, because Stream Analytics does take a little bit of time in the background to spin up, and yeah, I'm not in there. So let's create a new dashboard of demo bug. So this creates us a nice blank dashboard. So to add a streaming data set, all we do is we go custom streaming data as one of the tiles. And then here we can see our two data sets that we've created. If you click the add streaming data set, this is where you can also then go directly to APIs. Visual Stream, again, you can't actually use it. I'm not 100% certain why it's there, but it's there. And so yeah, what we then do is custom streaming data. We've got our data sets defined already. We go into project cars here. We say, right, I want a card, and then we saw these are all the fields that the game is outputting to that data set. One thing to note is if your job isn't running or you haven't received any data, this won't exist. It takes a long time to work out why it's not coming through when something's paused, believe me. And from here we can then go, okay, cool, well, let's not use this data set because that's the wrong one. Project cars telemetry, let's just add in a card with our speed on it, or our steering on it. So our steering is 8 because the wheel's slightly turned, if you can see. Hit next, and we have very quickly, if you click off it loses it, but very quickly you can start building up a dashboard. You can include images and kind of add a bit more context that way. Cool. So we have this beautiful dashboard that we've created. In the proper Blue Peter moment, here's what I made earlier. That is taking the data from the game and sending it to a shop. Well, okay, cool. This is a nice way to view it. It's slightly novel. It's new. But how do we go? How do we get this into AR? How do we actually start doing some really cool stuff with that? Well, Power BI natively has something called the scanner in the mobile app. I don't know if you guys have seen this. It is so the ways that we can surface data. We have HoloLens. Again, Microsoft would like you to believe that that this is a really good app. I spent my entire weekend watching it crash. It's not a really good app. It's technically still in beta, their mixed reality program. I don't know whether it's because it's the streaming data sets or what, but yeah, what they have in their demo is not how that works. Android, which again only found out late this weekend, doesn't actually support AR, even though it's got the most widely open sourced AR core module. So what happens is when you scan it, all it does is take you through to the tile in the mobile app, which again, useful in some situations, not useful for AR. However, for the first time ever, Apple is better than Android. So this has support. There's I believe Power BI have worked with a third party in order to deliver this. Basically, what you can do from inside any report in Power BI is, I can't alt-tab out, I need to escape. What you can do from pretty much any dashboard inside Power BI is go into focus mode on your visual that you want to show. And then you can hit generate QR code up in this top right corner, and that will allow anyone that has access and you've shared the report with literally open up on their phone. Again, some cool stuff that you can do around. I've seen a few places that have their security guards need to walk routes, and they scan these QR codes and it will tell them about stuff that they're walking around when the door was last open and stuff like that. So there's some pretty cool stuff you can do with just the QR codes. However, within the scanner, what we can do is actually have it surfaced in AR. So, again, in the vein of not being allowed a proper Formula 1 car, this is where things get interesting, and we can see if it's going to display the phone screen. That's Siri. How do I use my phone again? That one. Scroll up. Jeez. Should we use it? Sorry, bear with me. Wi-Fi's turned off, that's probably why it's not connected. Yeah, our first snag of today. One thing I don't have a redundancy for. Talk much yourselves.
We're enjoying watching.
Cool. There's quite a lot of lag. I'm running off my mobile hotspot because the guest Wi-Fi doesn't allow it. So we are going to have to wait. Oh no, this is not good. Yeah. Open up Power BI. So at the moment, HoloLens and Google Glass, as well as Magic Leap, I think, is one that's released recently. They're all still relatively fledgling until technology gets to the point where you can shrink it down a lot more. We can have a lot more processing power. Augmented reality requires quite a lot, and virtual reality as well, requires a rather large PC to be running. And because of that, this stuff, the majority of stuff we're consuming AR on our mobile phones at the moment, Pokemon Go, whatever the case is. Although they're about to launch something else. Right, I am now hoping that when this decides to load, it's loaded on my screen. Oh. Oh. Going into the scanner. I'm going to hit scanner in a minute, just watch. Never seen it this way before, but hey. Oh. So I'm going to stay here, and I'm going to be very, very still. So what we have is I've set up in the QR codes. I have taken the QR code for the 2-hour temperatures, and then on this little Formula 1, I think that'll be long enough. Eventually, that will catch up. But I've taken the QR. Are you kidding me? Right, if you hold it and just point it at that, and try and hold it still, and we'll try and scan. You might need to be at a slightly shallower angle. Yeah, there you are. So if you scan that, load, and there we are. Yeah? So what we see here, again, it's going to be laggy. It's a lot smoother on the phone, and I'll have this set up so that anyone after can come and have a look at it. But what we have is basically Power BI is going off in, the Power BI app is going off, and then it's displaying our code on top of that QR code. So it will take the contextual information of the angle it's on and all of this kind of stuff and show it there. So quite quickly, again, limited things I can show you on a small 3D printed car, but quite quickly you could start building out quite large models. So say, for example, one of the things that I will eventually talk, one of my friends works for F1, and one of the things I'm trying to talk him into is having something like this where people behind a car, but then separately having augmented reality of someone with a full-size F1 car and all of the stats popping out. They can drill into it, they can see all of this kind of stuff. So there's a lot of things that can be done with this, not just in the F1, but it is one of the cooler use cases in my opinion. So yeah, that's the basic capabilities of AR. And again, what that's taken us half an hour to do to get through to having a full, if not looking laggy, AR functionality, and you can just walk around and do all of that kind of stuff.
I recommend after coming and having a go on Alex's phone because it's much cooler
as it's tracking rather than doing that stuff. So all of this stuff will be set up as well as the other one. So again, please feel free to come and have a look. Again, or is this thing going to just take fire altogether? Sorry, my laptop's having a... So this was the backup in case that didn't work. So now the thing is, again, Power BI, augmented reality is cool, limited but cool. Oh, let me move. So yeah, Power BI is limited but cool, and kind of as I was starting to put this talk together, I kind of went, well, what's the augmented reality that we think of? What's the kind of thing? And it's the Pokemon Go firing Pokeballs at floating monsters in front of you kind of thing. And then that got me then thinking, well, how can I actually start and deliver something like that? Not necessarily with Power BI, but just in general. And what we can do is very subtly adapt our architecture and basically add in an extra step. So that extra step, everything up to here is the same, but we add in another source, another sink, which is Cosmos DB. This is an unstructured NoSQL DB. Throw messages into it and query them and pay lots of money for it. And then also having some Azure functions sitting as an API layer that allows us to query. Again, Cosmos DB has a SQL API, so you can just say select from items where X is this and this X is that. So we then have a script sitting inside Unity, which is the coding engine. Again, won't go into this. There's any questions on this stuff you can ask me at the end. But Unity, which then Unity is working for both HoloLens and AR Core or Android to display our data in a holographic form rather than just in a report floating in space attached to an object. So this is where things get really interesting. I now need to go. I'm now going to cast an Android phone this time rather than an iPhone. Okay, no worries, I have a backup. Right. My phone is now going to try and connect to Zex. Sorry. Go. Oh, it may have just picked it up itself. Nope. Honestly, I'm amazed I've got this on.
HDMI 1.
Yeah, I was pressing the wrong button. Well. Oh, this is fun. Okay. This one has a bit less latency, so it should be slightly nicer to use. So what we have is an Android app that is running Unity, which then has the AR core modules underneath. So only certain phones have the AR core capability allowed. But basically what this does is we can scan the room, it creates a virtual points cloud, and what I can do is fall in a hole, is tap on a screen, and we should be able to see a full-size F1 car come up. So what that will then do is this is going off, making some API calls back to my Cosmos DB, and there we are. So as I now, in theory, give it a second. There are, you can see them slowly starting to go. I don't think the computer's liking the speed of the Wi-Fi, so connections outgoing are going to be relatively slow. There you are. You can see them shaking there as I crash into something. So with this, we all of a sudden are in a... Again, feel free to have a play with this at the end, but what we can do there is quite quickly provide contextual information about the model and how... What we can then do, didn't have time for this one, however...
HDMI 2.
Thank you. So what we can then do is have frames inside of Unity with the Power BI reports being displayed as web pages, so that as you're there you can then start seeing contextual information on the hologram itself. Now when I get that working, we'll all be there'll probably be another talk just in that, but maybe not an issues group. So that's kind of the end of the demos. We are at the stage with this stuff that I think I can't go away and really sell this to a business. This is a good sales pitch, but nobody's data is ready for this really. Formula One might be, and Google probably have some pretty compelling arguments for their data. However, I think a reality like the Avengers, where everything is augmented, blow stuff up and analyse a crime scene and all this kind of stuff, although really cool, we're years away from that. There's so many challenges that data faces before we get to this point. I want to get to this point, but I'm not sure we will for a little while. And I think the interesting part is, especially with stuff like Power BI Android app not being available, look, you can't do AR in the Android app, stuff like that. That's because there's no demand for it. That's because people aren't ready for it. But as Stream Analytics constantly is improving, as Power BI is constantly improving, and again, in half an hour we set up a live streaming session, that would have taken months of development 5 years ago. And it's something that's really cool and can really start to harness and kind of push those changes forward. So I think the other thing that's next, and I alluded to it earlier, is if all of our glasses look like this and did the same thing that HoloLens does, we would all be in a much better position. Because one, you wouldn't look like so much of a muppet walking around, but also it's that at that point processing will have got to the point where it can do all of this heavy lifting on your head rather than in the cloud or wherever. So yeah, thanks for listening. Is there any questions? I understand that I've covered quite a lot in a short space of time, but yeah, if there's any questions.
With the live dashboards, what's the sort of minimum time resolution that you're looking at there?
So minimum time resolution, I've tracked it and it's been sub-second. Okay. It's very quick, but again, it's all dependent on the data you're streaming. One of the reasons that the dashboard was a little bit laggy is because how much I'm pushing. We're pushing a lot out, and Power BI, especially running in a Pro with non-dedicated resources, does have a limit to how much it calls it will let. I think it's like 200 a second. It's not insignificant, but there is enough of that if you need more than sub-second or sub-3 second real-time data, Power BI is probably not the best tool for certain. Well, that's what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, you generate a QR code on top of one visual,
Yep.
and then paste that with that.
Yep.
But I guess like you can only look at one measure or one KPI at a time.
Yes, when in AR or just in general?
In AR.
In AR, so yeah, in AR, the app currently limits to you. Again, you can come and have a play and try and trick it. So that's what I spent yesterday doing, moving it really quickly. But the way it works is it scans for one QR code, goes away, gets the request, and as soon as you move on and it updates the frame, it will then start looking for the other content. So yes, currently only one. However, the QR feature does allow, with a non-streaming dashboard, I believe it allows you to link through to reports as well. So you could have then multiple report pages showing up, but that's just not for the live streaming dashboard that we showed today. That wouldn't be an option. Yes.
How much do you think that was going to go wrong?
A lot. I'm genuinely amazed that worked. I did this as a run through to kind of dry run the tech, and I didn't even get data out of the computer. So the stress is over.
I guess James may not want to hear this. Roughly how much does that demo cost?
I'm looking at that now. How much does the gear cost?
Pardon? The gear is more of an obsession piece rather than.
I was talking about the Azure stuff.
The Azure stuff as well. So not as much as you think. So I'm running a Stream Analytics is pennies. It's really not that much. Blob storage, again, there's so many decimal places on the cost of blob storage that again negligible. The only really thing that really kind of spins up is the Azure function. For the Power BI streaming, very cheap. I'm going to say for an hour of streaming data, we're probably talking less than £1. Really not that much. The thing that kind of gets a bit more expensive is the Cosmos DB and doing the stuff around the API calls and stuff like that. It's still set to the minimum instance, so it's only 400 RUs, which is the processing unit, and that's about 19 pence an hour. So it's still not super expensive, but if I scaled it, then it might be. So yeah, it's a very reasonable option, I think. Plus, as well, obviously, you can set auto scale for pretty much every one of the components. So you start learning more data. Cool.
Okay.
If you want to have a play on the VR after the session, it's there. I have other games other than driving games, and yeah, if you want to come and play and have a look at the AR on the phones, then please feel free to just come and ask.
Thank you very much.